Different energy drinks on the blood pressure. Hello, my name is Lydia. This Science Odyssey presentation will be about how different types of energy drinks affect the blood pressure of a human being. Scientific method. The next few slides will be on the scientific method: purpose, background information, procedure, hypothesis, materials, diagrams, observations, conclusions, and sources of error. Purpose. The objective of this experiment is to see which out of the following energy drinks would have the greatest peak on an adult between the ages of 35 and 50 blood pressure: Monster Energy, Red Bull, and Coca-Cola within 90 minutes. Background information 1 out of 3. Amount of caffeine in Monster Energy. Monster Energy has 128 milligrams of caffeine every 8 ounces or 237 milliliters. Coca-Cola Energy has 76 milligrams of caffeine in 8 ounces or 237 milliliters. Red Bull has the same amount of caffeine as Coca-Cola Energy. Background information 2 out of 3. Reading blood pressure. Blood pressure levels are measured in millimeters of mercury, which is abbreviated as mm/Hg. The systolic blood pressure tells you the maximum part of your heartbeat when the heart chambers contract to push blood through your blood vessels. The diastolic blood pressure indicates the pressure in the arteries when the heart rests between beats. A blood pressure below 120 over 80 millimeters of mercury and over 90 over 60 millimeters of mercury would be considered a normal reading in an adult. When your systolic blood pressure falls between 120 and 129 millimeters of mercury and your diastolic blood pressure is less than 80 millimeters of mercury, that indicates that you have an elevated blood pressure. If your systolic blood pressure is between 130 and 139 millimeters of mercury, or if your diastolic blood pressure is between 80 and 89 millimeters of mercury, that is called high blood pressure stage 1 or hypertension in stage 1. When your blood pressure monitor indicates that a systolic blood pressure is 140 or more, or that the diastolic blood pressure is 90 or more, that is known to be high blood pressure stage 2 or hypertension in stage 2. Lastly, if a blood pressure is above 180 over 120 millimeters of mercury, it is a hypertensive crisis and you need to see your doctor immediately. Background information 3 out of 3. What happens when we drink an energy drink? Within 10 minutes after drinking an energy drink, the caffeine reaches the bloodstream, causing the heart rate and the blood pressure to increase. Over the next 15 to 45 minutes, caffeine levels peak in the bloodstream. As a result, the person will feel more alert and experience better focus. The effects of caffeine will begin to subside within an hour, and a sugar crash can occur. It takes an average of 12 hours for the body to properly eliminate caffeine from the bloodstream, but this depends on the person. Hypothesis. I think that the Monster Energy drink will escalate a person's blood pressure the most due to the fact that it contains more caffeine than the Coca-Cola Energy and the Red Bull. Materials. Measuring cup, 237 milliliters of the chosen energy drink, blood pressure monitor, and a 10-minute timer. Procedure 1 out of 3. Take a person in between the ages of 35 to 50's resting blood pressure, which is the blood pressure before having any energy drink. Pour a safe amount, 237 milliliters, of the chosen energy drink, Monster, Red Bull, Coca-Cola Energy, into a cup. Drink the full glass of the chosen energy drink all at once. Measure your blood pressure and set a timer for 10 minutes. This timer will be a reminder for the next time you measure your blood pressure. Write your blood pressure down. Systolic, you can write it down as SYS, and for diastolic, you can write it down as DIA. And you write it down on the table on the next slide. As you can see, you write down the test subject, the gender, the age, the resting blood pressure, and then you continue to measure the person's blood pressure until you got it filled up to the 9. Step 6 is to repeat steps 4 to 5 9 more times. This is my setup for my experiment. Here, this is a table, and here I have a blood pressure monitor, the energy drink, a timer, and paper to write down the results. Observations 1 out of 4. Chart Part 1. This is the filled-in chart of the chart from before in the procedure. This is a chart that I made to represent the data that was collected. This axis, the x-axis represents the time in minutes, and the y-axis represents the blood pressure in millimeters of mercury. Here, as you can see, the Red Bull, the systolic blood pressure levels when drinking Red Bull peak the most out of all of the systolic blood pressures, and the diastolic blood pressure when drinking Monster Energy drink peaked the most out of all the energy drinks. How I created this chart was I used my data, and then I got the averages of all of the time slots, I guess. As you can see here, I took, for example, Monster Energy drink. I took this, and I took the other Monster Energy drink, and I took the other Monster Energy drink, and I calculated the average of both the systolic and the diastolic, and I repeated that 9 more times. Conclusion 1 out of 2. Which of the following energy drinks would have the greatest peak on an adult between the ages of 35 and 50's blood pressure? Monster Energy, Red Bull, and Coca-Cola Energy within 90 minutes. My hypothesis was that the Monster Energy would escalate a person's blood pressure the most. I based my hypothesis on the idea that it contains the most caffeine out of the 3 drinks. Conclusion 2 out of 2. The results of this experiment indicate that this hypothesis was only somewhat supported. The Red Bull escalated an adult systolic blood pressure the most, 130 millimeters of mercury, while the Monster Energy had escalated the adult's diastolic blood pressure the most, 96 millimeters of mercury. Sources of error. Where did I go wrong? Age. I think that a factor behind the results might have been age. This is because when a person ages, their systolic blood pressure rises while their diastolic pressure falls. Gender. I think gender also played a role in the results of this experiment because there wasn't equal amounts of men and women in each category of drink, and men tend to have a higher blood pressure than women. Discussion 1 out of 2. The Monster Energy escalates the diastolic pressure of an adult between the ages of 35 and 50 the most out of Monster Energy, Red Bull, and Coca-Cola Energy, while Red Bull escalates the systolic pressure the most. This study could have been improved by choosing people in a smaller age range example 30 to 40, and choosing people of the same gender to experiment on. Discussion 2 out of 2. This experiment is significant because high blood pressure is never good for your health. It can lead to a heart attack or a stroke, aneurysm, heart failure, weakened and narrowed blood vessels in your kidneys, thickened, narrowed, or torn blood vessels in the eyes, metabolic syndrome, trouble with memory or understanding, and dementia. All of these things aren't good for your health. So if you want to consume energy drinks, Coca-Cola Energy would be the healthiest option out of Monster, Coca-Cola Energy, and Red Bull. It gives you the same amount of energy, but it does not spike your blood pressure up as much. These are all of the websites that I've used. And this is the other half. Thank you for listening to my Science Odyssey presentation, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!